54 in the morning on this Monday. Hey, I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Wachs. Some of you are getting rain. Heard from someone in Oshkosh saying that it was a nice little storm blowing on through. Now, this is not severe. Again, we are live. I am a meteorologist in Milwaukee, if you're not familiar. And we are watching this cell that is making its way into Fond du Lac County, actually at a decent clip now. It looks like it is increasing just a little bit now in forward speed. This is not severe. However, it likely has about 40-mile-per-hour winds with it and some hail as well. The National Weather Service did say, I'll zoom you on in here. And by the way, this is the Radar Scope app that I'm using. This is where we likely have some hail heading into North Fond du Lac, and that will head really right into the city of Fond du Lac shortly with heavy rain and some hail. The National Weather Service did mention some concern about some downburst winds here. Not seeing that as at this point, but let's go ahead and just take a look at the velocity here. And I don't see anything overly concerning. That being said, the radar is looking a little higher up into the storm, so it may be tough to see the lower levels. Why are we seeing the colors that we're seeing, which are these higher values of purples? And that's a couple reasons. One is the heavy rain, but also that is the hail potential, which is increasing a little bit. So that's going to be the orange that you see right here. That is the hail, which I'll animate, and you can see how it's gone up just a little bit. So the hail is perking up there just a little bit as it's heading into Fond du Lac. So if you're in the Fond du Lac area, hey, you're lucky at least you're getting some rain. We could all use that around here. So let me zoom this out for you. And though I'm just kind of analyzing, thinking about it as I'm looking at it here, Sheboygan, you're getting in on some rain here. You'll have a few rumbles. Overall, except for that southwestern segment, I think most of this is weakening as it's moving into Sheboygan County, but it's also expanding a little bit now just on the front side of it, so into northeast parts of Washington County, for example. So we will get some rain here in our northern counties. I think the strongest part of that, again, is heading into Fond du Lac as we speak. So will this make it to Milwaukee? Probably not. I think it's going to hold just north, but hey, maybe we'll see it expand a little bit and we can get a little more rain trying to come in. So it's going to be nice to get some rain for some here. Up to the northwest, let's take a look at another radar site. What I love is we can click on different local radar sites here. So you look up to the north towards Duluth, there's all these storms now that are popping up. Latest model data is trying to show a squall line developing sometime in the morning, let's say 6 to 9 in the morning, something to that effect. I'm not confident in that right now. The Storm Prediction Center has us under another enhanced risk for that threat in the morning. Models are all over the place. The models did not have this Fond du Lac County cell. It's been extremely frustrating, especially when it's showing, major storms and then nothing happens because we're too capped or because the lift isn't there, what have you. Because the ingredients are there. They're just not coming together. And this is a decent cell. Thankfully, it is not severe. However, just within the last frame, look at the nice rain coming into northwestern portions of Sheboygan County. So Greenbush, Elkhart Lake, yeah, you're going to get a decent rain shower here, and you don't have to deal with the severe weather. Isn't that great? So, and it's kind of expanding. So Port Washington, you might even get a little bit here too. I think all of Sheboygan County gets some rain. That's still the heavier one here heading right into Fond du Lac, the heavier part of that cell. That could very well reach West Bend or at least Kewaskum. So that's going to be on a track there. Again, not severe at this point, but still a decent cell nonetheless. Everybody else outside of this zone, you're probably going to be pretty dry overnight. And then we'll see if we get that morning batch. I'm not confident. There's some of the models from earlier were going like a derecho, meaning like 70, 80, 90 mile per hour winds with this morning batch coming in after 6 a.m., I should clarify. And the problem is I'm not seeing it yet. And if we don't see it by 4 in the morning, the likelihood of it happening is much lower. However, the afternoon is what I'm a little more concerned with because we would have singular supercells. And that, especially if we get hot, is more concerning for me. Now, as we look at the radar animating here, and if you're just joining me, again, it's about 1:30 in the morning here live. And make sure to subscribe and follow and all that stuff for the latest weather information as well. A lot of folks might be wondering, we tend not to see this as much in the spring. We didn't see this as much in April when we had those tornadoes, or even in June. Why the uncertainty, right? Why are the models so bad? Why the uncertainty? And I have an answer for that. Reason being is, unlike in the spring and even in the fall, you have big troughs of low pressure, okay, that come through, swing on through, that lifts the air up. Not only that, but you have big temperature gradients, even into June, right? Where we can go from, 80 to 55 pretty quickly, right? We don't get the temperature gradients as much in the summertime, and we do, but it's not to the scale, right, that we do in the spring or the fall. And more importantly, those troughs of low pressure that are huge in the springtime are non-existent right now. So we have a ridge off to the west. We have these little areas of lift coming around that ridge. So that's what's happening now, North Dakota into Minnesota. That's why the storms are firing up there, where they are right now. And again, not a good view, but you see all the severe thunderstorm warnings? That's that next area of lift coming on through. It's not a huge, barn burner type of a trough that we would see in the spring. That's why forecasting this time of year is extremely difficult. And I always say there's never been a squall line that I've trusted. It's because in part because these little areas of lift, and we call that positive vorticity advection at about 18,000 feet, it's small. And again, look at what's happening right now. This was not in the model data in Fond du Lac County. And so that's what I mean. Things can pop up here and there. And so you have to use future radars with caution. You have to use model data with caution. And you really have to go with environmental factors. And then a lot of it is like I'm talking about at 1:32 in the morning, storm scale analysis, right? Like as soon as it pops, that's when we start to get that idea. So that takes me back to the morning storms, 6 a.m. and after. If I don't see it develop in the next few hours, and I'm handing the baton over, by the way, to my colleague, meteorologist Rob Haswell, here shortly. So if he doesn't see it in the next few hours, if it does happen, I'm sure I will wake up and post a little bit. But if it doesn't show up in the next couple of hours as a big line up to the north, the likelihood of it happening is rare. And we've been seeing that with this model data. And again, it's because of those pockets of lift that are very hard to nail down if it's going to form anything, because this is not a big, huge spring system. It is a very diffuse summer system with unstable air. So there's a lot more instability right now, meaning warm air at the surface, cold air aloft, almost than we have in the spring, right? There's just monster instability, meaning that warm air can really rise if it's lifted. But what we don't have is that strong lift to do it. And so it makes weather forecasting very difficult. And I know a lot of people have been very frustrated. Let me tell you, the numbers of comments I've gotten today of, man, I wish I could get paid to be wrong all the time, and, things I can't repeat on here. I get it. Trust me. Like it's my job. It's what we do for a living. And, I'm sitting here at 1:30 in the morning live on the internet to try to keep people informed. There's nobody that cares more than me, right? Plus, I'm putting my credibility on the line when I put out a forecast, not to mention the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service. We all want to get it right. We don't want to see severe weather, but we all want to, at the same time, get the forecast right. And it's not intentional. It's science, and that's... I get it. I even heard from somebody today who said, look, I canceled my plans to Wisconsin Dells because of the forecast. And that's unfortunate. And I know that, that happens. with people. And, that is unfortunately weather in the summertime sometimes, and you've got to really take it hour by hour. And this is where I do my best to try to update as much as I can, even at, 1:30 in the morning. Because I know people are concerned. I know people have weather anxiety. I know people have plans in the morning. All that sort of a thing it's more than a job to me, right? It's a way of life, and it's a commitment that I know I have to you guys to bring that information. And it's frustrating, and obviously it hurts when people come at us, but at the same time, having been in the business long enough, you grow a thick skin, and you learn how to deal with that. But we don't do this to guess, and we don't do this to be alarmist or for ratings or clicks. We do this to get the message out there. And I think one other way to put it, I'll zoom this out a little bit. Another way to put it is, we are not, I would feel horrible if I knew that there was a threat for severe weather and I didn't say anything, and then it happened. And then people are saying, well, why didn't you tell me a day and a half ago that there was this big risk? And then it happened, right? I mean, that, in my opinion, is so much worse. So, again, I get the frustration, and there's some people who are really not happy with us, and I understand that. But that literally is Mother Nature, right? And, what we have to do is continue to do a better job at explaining the science, explaining the uncertainty, and, keep doing our job to the best of our ability. And I'm proud of our team, and I'm proud of what we do. Okay. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. Northern Ozaukee County, see, nice little shower there. Hey, if you're experiencing some of this rain, Sheboygan County, let me know. Fond du Lac, this is a decent storm, my goodness. Let's take a look. Let's deep dive this a little bit for you. Speaking of science, let's get into it. Hail, that has come back down. So let me animate that. Pooh, that's coming down again. So not too concerned with that. Let's look at the wind. So I'm going to switch over here to the velocity, and we can actually query it. Yeah, I mean, we're looking pretty high up in the storm here, but not too concerned about that. I think this is why we have not seen any sort of a severe thunderstorm warning issued. One other thing I think you'll find fascinating and very interesting here. Well, I just caution, when I say very interesting, I'm coming at it from a weather nerd standpoint. Interesting. So this thunderstorm is at about 35,000 feet in Fond du Lac. It's okay. If you want to see a severe thunderstorm, you really got to get into the 40 to 50,000 foot range. Watch this though. So these are the echo tops, essentially the storm tops. Can we see when it was back in Oshkosh? It was, and the Green Bay radar might show this better. Let's switch. See if we can see that better. A little bit. It was up to about 40,000 feet, 35 to 40,000 earlier, so it's come down a little bit. And that's why I say this is interesting, because if the storm is decreasing in its height, that means that two things. Number one, there's going to be a generalized weakening. But number two, and I'm talking about Fond du Lac specifically now down to Eden and Campbellsport, you're going to be, this is coming right towards you as well. If this storm starts collapsing, imagine what'll happen. The wind comes out of the storm, right? So the wind will pick up, certainly, out of this, especially if it starts collapsing. All right, so good rain, Kewaskum, West Bend. It'll be West Bend or just east. Again, Sheboygan County, you've got, maybe some rumbles mixed in there, but that's just more of a nice, gentle rain that you need. We all need it. Send it our way, please, to everywhere else. So that's what I've got for you here. Thanks for staying up late or early. Just, nothing like watching storms. And I love it to be able to, I'm on my phone. So I love that I can sit here and, take you on kind of a radar tour, right? And chat about the weather. So some decent lightning with that. A lot of lightning and thunder in Fond du Lac County. Kewaskum, that's heading your way. I don't think it's going to make it to Milwaukee. It's going to be awfully close. It may just stay into parts of Washington and Ozaukee counties, but maybe we'll get lucky into Milwaukee here. But that's it. This is going to be it then for at least the next several hours. Then we've got to see what happens up to the north. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll go and check those here when I am done with the live. So we'll keep watching it. We'll watch the radar. Let me know, especially if you're like in Fond du Lac or in these areas where you can hear that thunder and lightning. Let me know what a thunderstorm sounds like. It's been a while since we've all experienced one. So, let me know if you have any hail size, any wind or anything like that. But right now it looks to be just a strong thunderstorm heading southeast through Fond du Lac. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. We've been on now for a good 10, 15 minutes. And